Welcome to Beers with Contractors. We're cracking a cold one and taking a deep dive into the foundations of your business, pun intended, to unearth the strategies, techniques, and insider knowledge that can take your contracting business to the next level. So, grab your favorite beer, pull up a seat, and let's have a chat about the nuts and bolts of the construction industry.
Dylan, it is summertime, man. I am feeling it.
I love it. Welcome summertime.
You know my guilty pleasure about summer. Like once it comes along, the country music can be the better it sounds in my ears. It's like the more pandering it is, I'm just all about it. And then it maybe has to do with my circadian rhythm or something. It's like, man, I just kind of want some beer and country music. It is feeling good outside.
Just have a strong affinity towards broken pickup trucks and my dog and cheap beer.
I love it. It is like my life right now. Get in my pool, get my Coors Light, and then I throw on the country music, and I can float there all day. It's amazing.
It's a beautiful thing. It's fun. It's funny. I'm the same way too. It's something about the summer. It lights you up in a new way. But I got to ask you something. You were talking the other day about some leadership training that you were doing to light a little fire under some leaders at your current company. And you had mentioned something that was kind of funny. And do you want to share it with our listeners?
We're trying to think outside the box. Like, how can we develop our people better? So we've got this training going on right now where we're trying to get them better at like preparation and commanding an audience in their meetings. And I'm not talking about leadership meetings. These would be like sales or production meetings. And I just want to strengthen that because meetings, we all know this, employees hate meetings. They're boring. Managers don't prepare for the meetings. They just are not very good at articulating them. They don't inspire action. So we have a training coming up this Friday that they will then be told that in helping them prepare, we will be going down to the local comedy club to the open mic night, and they will have to present a spot in front of a room of strangers.
No way.
And I am pumped. I am so pumped. I'm going to do it too.
Oh, really? Wow. So the way you're training your managers is you got to do some stand-up.
Yeah, I mean, and you know how people think about public speaking and things like that. I mean, presentations or meetings are practically public speaking in a smaller setting. So it's like, what better way to learn than to go like into the, I'm not going to say worse, I'm not going to look at it negatively, go into a very highly stressful situation, because then a normal sales meeting would be a breeze. Right?
Yeah. I got to ask you this and be real here with me. Do you find the managers that are about to go do stand up? Do you find them funny? Like, do you think that they're gonna do well, or are you just like setting this up for failure?
If they bomb, I'm gonna laugh even harder. It's gonna be like I have a very good friend, and well, actually, his name may come up today because of our topic. That actually has done this. His name is John Andrews. He works for Builders First Source. Did this as kind of a bucket list item, and he says when you see people up there and they bomb, it ties your stomach in a knot. It's so uncomfortable. And he did it for a few weeks, and he says the worst part is when people bomb and then you see them the next week and they do the exact same bit, like what's gonna happen?
No lesson learned.
I don't know, maybe they practiced and they thought it was better, but it was like, he said he saw that. It was like, oh my gosh, this sounds absolutely horrible.
That sounds so rough. So best case scenario, what do you want your managers to get out of this?
I want them to learn the lesson of preparation. Hopefully not preparation H by the end of it, but preparation, because it's like if they can put as much thought into this for the quality of a stranger, then they should be putting 10 times more effort into the quality of their employees. So this is kind of the case study. And also they're going to come away with an experience that they're going to share with one another. And I think we'll have some great laughs. There'll be some embarrassment, but that's okay. We all trust one another. There's psychological safety there. But there's also this other thing that I've been wanting to do for years in our leadership team is I've literally been wanting to throw them out of a plane, like take them skydiving. And Sydney won't let me do it. Well, I mean, we can make them sign a waiver, but what brings a team closer together than just like insane experiences that they shared with one another? So I got them the next best thing. We're going to go do comic, stand-up, open mic night. Maybe we bring the cameras in for the podcast. We film it and put it out there in the world, kind of like your duck video. a few weeks ago, the baby ducks. Maybe it'll go viral.
It will be the most cringe thing. I just have a feeling. I don't know. Maybe they're like going to surprisingly like show out and it's going to be incredible, but
We're going to see how well they are at preparing. I'm not asking them to do anything I'm not going to do myself. I'm going to do it. And I may bomb, but you know what? At least I went up there and did it.
yeah. It reminds me so for the listeners out there, a little known fact about me is I actually came from ministry. So I was in seminary to be a Catholic priest. One of the classes I had to take was a sermon or homily preaching class. And so, we had to every week or every other week preach something to the whole group and basically to your peers, and they had to evaluate you. And there's a lot of like real life lesson in that because, nothing like getting corrected by your peers like weekly and then, showing up for the next week and trying not to have your tail between your legs. But the first week I ever tried to preach a fake or practice homily, I literally got up there. I got 20 seconds into what I had kind of rehearsed, and then I just froze. And I just forgot what I was going to say next. And I looked down at my notes and I looked ahead like 3 bullet points beyond where I should have been. And I just started talking about that, and it made no sense at all. I just like completely bombed it.
Well, half of it's in Latin, right?
Right. Yeah. It was in Latin. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was Catholic Church. Yes.
New Age Latin.
Very good. Very poor Latin, really. Pig Latin. And at the end of it, I'll never forget this. My professor, he stops me and he goes, okay, well, first off, kudos for not just like giving up, right? Kudos for continuing to go, even though it didn't really make sense where you went. But he said, this is a great thing for you as a person because your worst nightmare of this scenario has just happened. And now you got over it and you realize that you're fine and everything's going to be okay. And from here on up, it's always going to be better because it can't be that bad. So I hope your managers have that same experience when they go to the comedy club.
I'm just glad I'm not a professor, especially in this scenario. I'd have been like, young Dillon, God is laughing at you right now. How horrible that was.
That was rough. Yeah, that was rough.
But hey, you know what? You have that and you're laughing now, right?
I am. Yeah, no, I got through it.
You got to check that box off. And now I've seen you speak in front of people. You're good.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of tricks to the trade, and I'm sure that, in terms of what they experience, your managers experience from your training, I mean, body language and just your pauses, the way that you change your tone and slow things down or speed things up, depending on what you want to say, it influences things massively.
It does. Well, and the good news is today, we're probably going to explain a little bit. People are probably wondering why you got bags under your eyes, Will. But our speaker today will help shine some light on that and is no stranger to public speaking, by the way. So our guest today is the founder of Green Home Coach. It's a nationwide known firm that helps builders and homeowners identify ways to improve their quality of life through green home initiatives. We're going to learn about some of those today. She's got an award roster. There's not enough space, Dylan. So I just threw a few of them out there. I'm talking accolades ranging from 2013 University Award from the Society of Women of Engineers, Business Journal's Excellent Construction, all the way to Associate Member of the Year with the Home Builders Association. That's just a handful here. I would say we're standing on the shoulders of giants, but this gal is a little shorter than us. The list goes on forever, Dylan. So she's a regular public speaker at the International Building Show in Vegas, and I've gotten a chance to experience one of those, numerous certifications and degrees in the building industry. So, but also another thing is she is, and you've heard me speak about this often, she's the executive director of our construction camp called Construct My Future. And this is a week-long annual camp that we hold every year. It's just meant to educate middle schoolers and all the awesome opportunities in the trades. Our guest today is the lovely wine-drinking superwoman, Marla Cloos. So, Marla, welcome to Wine with Contractors.
Wine with women in contracting.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, and we're starting to have a lot of appearances now all of a sudden. It's like, well, we had Nicole from Talking Trash, and then we had Melissa Green. So, but Marla, this has been long overdue because, gosh, how long we worked together, Marla?
3 years.
3 years feels like 15, I tell you. I'm just kidding.
What can I say? We cram what? At least a month or two into that week.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, it's fun but exhausting. Let's do the Quentin Tarantino. We've gone to where we are now. Let's go back to the beginning. So where did you decide that you wanted to get into specifically your green home focus? Because you've been doing this a while.
I have since 2000. 6, or I calculated that correctly. And I kind of backed into it in a funny way. But a friend of mine in St. Louis, when I still lived in St. Louis, I knew him through IBM, and he was of age to retire, and they didn't have another job for him. So he comes to me and he says, hey, what am I going to do next? I'm too old to sit still. I was like, great. So we went through a bunch of ideas, and the one he settled on was opening up an energy efficiency boutique consulting firm. And he said, come with me and come work on it. I'm like, no, I'm happy where I am right now. Well, 6 months later, I'm there, marketing, helping him run the company. But there was a really nice educational component and sustainability component in St. Louis that was a very welcoming community and really just took me under their wing. There's a woman that's still there at the Missouri Botanical Garden. They have a whole sustainability arm called Earthways. Jean Ponzi has been there, I don't know, since long before I came aboard, I think. But she is still working with so many green initiatives in St. Louis. And that really got me the bug. And coupled with what I'd learned from my grandmother, who was a young woman during the Depression, kind of the whole waste not, want not. And then a chemical reaction with my daughter that happened when she was a teenager. I was like, blam, everything kind of came together. So when I got into this energy efficiency group or small group, it was like, okay, I'm home. This is what I'm supposed to do. And that was really the beginning. We went separate ways after a while, and then I came here after a while.
So, but in 2006, green wasn't even really a word.
It was actually. Yeah, actually, believe it or not, in the early 2000s, probably more right around 2006 to 2010, there was actually a green building conference that the National Associations of Home Builders put on. I went to a couple of the later ones, which were like 2011, 2012. So it was out there, but Energy Star, which came out of Austin, Texas, was really the beginning of it. And that started in the energy efficiency world. And I still know some people that were involved in getting that going back in Austin. But it has grown from there. And there's now not just an emphasis on energy efficiency, but on health and wellness and resiliency and how well our homes and our buildings treat people. You know, we have to take care of them, but they also help take care of us. And so that it's a shift in how we look at it, if you will. More the human element.
So just to give us a little bit of background then, consultancy around green homes, I assume maybe green businesses as well, or what does that mean? What does that look like?
So I work strictly on residential, although now mixed use is sneaking into the residential space. So there's a little bit of commercial coming up in this. I'm going to have my first project with some mixed use. Hopefully we'll get next year. So what I've tried multiple things in here, and I've kind of gone back and forth. And I started in all this with a software product, services as software. And it's still out there, but it is an online homeowner's manual because one of the requirements inside of most of the National Green Building certification programs is homeowner or building owner education and documentation. So I helped design a program years ago that did that. It's still nothing else out there like it, really. But it's that aspect of how do you, okay, we're giving you this Maserati, the home, although it didn't cost you as much as the Maserati, it only cost you as much as a Ioniq. Sorry. Still pretty pricey.
I'm just glad she said that because I never knew how to pronounce it. I saw them on the cars. I'm like, I knew.
I'm just mad that they didn't cost the price of a Ford Focus, but
At any rate, you know, you're giving people this better home, better buildings, and then you want to make sure they understand, A, how to take care of them, and B, what else they can do. Because your hope is by living in a better place, they're going to get the bug to do better things with their own lives. And all of our outcomes are based on the things that are in our life, the physical things, but also how our behavior affects those. And this behavior part still gets left in the dark a lot, even though we talk about it a lot. So that was really the piece I came up with, was how do we help people understand what else they can do and how these things affect them. The health and wellness aspect has helped people to pay a lot more attention, especially since COVID. We were all stuck in our homes for so long, and we started realizing a lot of things about our homes, but it still has to be affordable. It still has to be doable. It still has to be easy enough to take care of. And I'm sure we all know a builder or two that forgets those things once in a while. Yeah. And the other extreme too.
So we obviously know builders are the most adaptable human beings in the world. They adopt new technology like right away, without a doubt. So what has been the big challenge in the last few years working with contractors and trying to turn the ship in the green energy world?
So when I moved here, I'd done a lot of consulting work specifically with a number of multifamily programs. There's, for instance, HUD. has several programs. Most states have a housing development corporation or authority that helps to develop low-income housing or low to moderate income housing. And there are some requirements for energy efficiency in green inside of HUD at a national level, and then the states can interpret that however they want. So there's varying levels of greenness and energy efficiency in those programs. Well, I got a call one day. It was in Phoenix, Arizona at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, wrapping up my 20th anniversary trip many years ago with my kiddo's dad, and my phone rings. And I look at it and it says South Carolina. And I'm like, who the heck is calling me from South Carolina at this hour in the morning? And then I realized it was normal time in South Carolina. But anyway, I answered the phone, and it was a gentleman who was putting together a deal for a low income tax credit project. And this is the one we see a lot that has some green and or energy efficiency measures in it. So we talked for a while, and he's like, well, I got this project. We need somebody on it. Can you do it? And at the time, I was a consultant, but I was not yet a verifier. I'll explain the difference. But I said yes. Never done one before in my life, but I knew I had the right people that I could go to. And I was pretty sure I knew what I was doing. And it got me started in consulting. And so I did those kinds of projects in St. Louis until I left so it was about 4 or 5 years. And then when I moved up here, I'd always wanted to build the online component of my business. So I worked on that. Mixed results, coupled with we had some personal things that kind of kicked us in another direction. But the online space got really crowded after COVID. And it just got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. So I've gone back to consulting now. And also doing something I call verification. Well, they call it verification. So the national systems have people that are trained to go inspect homes and buildings in those particular programs. And I got my credentials to do that for the National Green Building Standard, which is a very long name, but it's one that the National Association of Home Builders endorses. But it's an ICC 700 standard. It's approved by ANSI. So all those acronyms that mean other people besides us said it was good. It's basically what it comes down to.
You know, you started in 06, and I remember like growing up with just some green sort of things that were kind of being brought into schools. Recycling, it was like this is a mammoth thing that everyone just expected we should start recycling, and it was about that time. The world's embraced a lot of green energy, green product things since then. But I imagine you still come into different misunderstandings or myths that are out there. People get things wrong. What are some of those myths or misunderstandings that people have that you run into?
Well, there was one that was very rampant a few years back. It's gotten a little bit better. But if you have solar panels, then you're automatically green. Which, if you have solar panels, but you're burning enough energy for a small city, you've just invested in enough solar panels to power a small city. So it can be a very wonderful part of the package. But again, any one thing that's on its own isn't necessarily going to be the end. The other one that we were hearing a lot a few years back that's actually now kind of moving out was that it was only for millennials, and only millennials cared about sustainability. And one of the most interesting things that a lot of people kind of are surprised at is it's actually baby boomers that are doing many of the greener measures in their homes. And a couple of reasons. One of them is that they've lived in homes longer. So they're tired of hassling with it. Yeah. And a lot of the green measures, I say green in air quotes, a lot of them are actually designed to help you live in your home easier, less hassle, less time, easier maintenance, last longer, resilient materials, all of that, all the things that we want to be a lock and leave home and to support our health, because as we get older, all those little health things seem to creep up. So that's where we're seeing actually a big embrace. But ironically enough, baby boomers oftentimes are the parents of millennials. So maybe there's a connection there.
If we could talk practically, I know you have a book, Living Green Effortlessly, Simple Choices for a Better Home.
And I didn't name it.
You didn't name it? Okay.
You should have made it an acronym, Marla. Everything's an acronym.
Yeah, I actually wish they'd named it the other way around.
Simple Choices for a Better Home. Great. Well, that's actually where I was going to ask. So, I mean, practically speaking, what are some of the simple choices that people have made and like that you would just recommend?
Yeah. What's your like top 3 favorite?
LED light bulbs. If you still have incandescent light bulbs in your home, well, about 95% of the energy they use is put off as heat, not as light. So you're adding to your air conditioning bill. And if you're in Minnesota in the winter, I guess you've got a leg to stand on. But for most of us, we really don't want to be paying twice. Green cleaning. And this one kind of is a gateway to green stuff. So a lot of the cleaners that we use in our homes are toxic in and of themselves. So in an effort to get our homes better and cleaner, we're bringing in more stuff we shouldn't breathe. Some of them are poisonous. And if you have small children or animals around, that can be a detriment. That includes stuff we use on our yards too. There's been a huge increase in the amount of cancer in our pets. You've got to wonder if it's not what they're walking on. I haven't seen a study with a direct correlation, but there's definitely some anecdotal evidence there. And thirdly, and you may laugh at this one, buy tree-free and use toilet paper.
Interesting.
Was that sold at regular stores? Like
CVS, online. My favorite provider of my tree-free toilet paper is Who Gives a Crap. It's the name of the company. I am not an affiliate with them. I just like their product. They sell two. They sell a recycled toilet paper, and it's not made from recycled toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
And then they also have a bamboo toilet paper that is sustainably grown. Bamboo is a great resource for renewable hard, can replace wood in many cases. But when we've got some places tearing down old growth forest or farmland or land that's used for other purposes to grow bamboo, we've just traded one thing for the other. So they have sustainably managed bamboo fields that they source from. But what really got me hyped up about this is there was an NRDC, a National Resource Defense Council, I think I got that right, white paper that went out a few years ago that was talking about how many of our toilet paper producers are literally cutting down full trees to use for making toilet paper up in the boreal, I'm not sure I pronounced that right, the big old growth forests in Canada. And I'd always assumed that they used the leftover twigs and shavings and all that stuff for toilet paper and saved the big wood for things that needed big wood, lumber and furniture and stuff. And that's not the case. So I'd already been investigating this, but when I got a hold of that one, it's like, okay, that's pretty scary. That's the wrong direction. I don't literally want to flush trees down the toilet.
That's wild, the thing.
It just makes you also think that the bidet craze, I think that's a growing thing as well.
It is hugely. You even have little portable bidets you can take with you now. And I haven't converted yet. I'm still I'm a little older than y'all, so I'm still a little stuck in.
I've only tried it once or twice at Airbnbs that had them, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready for this. It's a little too much for me.
Well, the good ones warm the water up first. And then they have a nice little warm blow of air, I guess, to dry you off. So, but it makes more sense if you think about it. But Americans have some very peculiar habits that we're kind of attached to. One or two.
Highly consuming habits, for sure.
Speaking of habits and tying back into the boomers versus millennials, this makes so much sense, why my father always used to run around the house saying, who the hell's leaving all the damn lights on? I mean, I swear, I think there's an old Jeff Barksworthy joke said, I think if my father could, he would just go from one room to another with one bulb. So that was their green movement back when we were growing up.
And the millennial answer to that is just put in motion sensors and the lights turn themselves up.
And tie it to your phone. But how do I do that to my phone? Anyway, we'll make we could have all sorts of generational humor and fun there. It'd be great. So I love this background. Obviously, I want to get to a lot of our construction cam, which was an idea that came about a few years ago. And thank goodness you kind of came into our lives into this idea because you were already doing this with high schoolers. But for those that don't know, our construction camp called Construct My Future hosts middle schoolers every summer, educating them on all the cool stuff in the trade. This last year we did welding, HVAC, framing, carpentry, just all sorts of stuff. So when we kind of look back, Marla, it's kind of a blur to me. This was not the first venture you had in trying to educate the youth in the trades. That started with a different organization. So tell us about that. So
Build My Future is the one we started with, which I brought here with the help of our professional women in building exec team, which is a team of about 7 of us at the time. It's pretty small. We decided this was going to be our signature project, but I actually had heard about the project from a friend of mine that was with the Home Builders Association in Springfield, Missouri. And then we went up to hers, and they have great workforce development committee up there that's citywide, and they put on this amazing event. All hands-on, interactive, so many different trades and skills that we see across the construction industry, and very engaging. Just, I was smitten. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. So I come home and I convince these other unsuspecting ladies We have to do this. And I'll be darned, they believed me and they followed and we did it. The first year was a little hairy getting it off the ground, and the Home Builders Association, the executive team there, didn't know us really well as a group. So there was some angst going on with all that. And my husband had just pulled out of a number of surgeries on top of all that. So it was kind of a crazy year. But we said, we just got to do this. We just got to do it. And we did. We had 450 high school kids come through the doors and have an amazing time. And we had built relationships with the schools and with different contractors and people in the building industry, and not just the residential industry, but some commercial, some civil. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So we did it the second year, and we grew to 800 and change that year, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And our little professional women in building was still putting it on, and things were going pretty well. Wait a minute. We skipped a year there because COVID was in between. Yeah. So we did online version that year, which to this day, we still have a ton of resources up on the Build My Future website that can help students to identify what kind of jobs they may want to look at and to get a little bit of an interactive experience through their brains because it's all online. 21, we did it again. And then 22, our Home Builders Association came in and said, y'all have given enough. Let us take it over. Please guide us. And so we did that for the last 2 years. And we had 1,400 students last year. So we've grown quite a bit. And there's probably about 40 Build My Future programs now around the country. So it's spread a lot. It's open source. So anybody that wants to go in and to adopt this, Springfield, Missouri has been incredibly generous with sharing their templates and their processes. And if you want to talk to people there, et cetera. And so a lot of people have done them, and they all vary a little bit. It's touched a lot of students, a lot, which is amazing. And we need it. We're finally starting to see us turn the corner on getting more people into construction and skilled trades education and even in the industry. But we have a long pipeline to fill because we didn't fill it for a lot of years.
Well, I want to say first off, congratulations, because that's awesome. The amount of growth, and I know that takes a lot of work and a huge team to make that happen. So I know you sort of have like a roll of the eyes. So like, oh yeah, let me tell you, I've been through the ringer.
We got a few stories.
So congrats on that. In terms of the team that makes that happen, I just have to ask, like, obviously we want the viability of the trades and of construction, but you do need a team of contractors to make these sorts of camps happen. So why should contractors care about these programs to get the youth into the trades and construction?
There's a handful of reasons, but the most important one is their future. And they want to continue to have employees into the future and have a selection of employees. And supporting events like these is helping to fill that pipeline for all of us in the trades and the construction industry. And I heard a statistic not too long ago that said for every 7 plumbers that retire, guess how many there are to bring up the rear?
No idea.
1 in 7.
Now, don't quote me. That's an anecdote, but probably not far off base because we skipped basically 2 generations. When we took shop out of high schools, they had no other way of being exposed to this. So many people are now realizing that was not a good balance because if we don't have people to work with their heads and their hands, we don't get things done. And these are things that it's hard to outsource building. I'm sitting here looking at this lovely skyline on your wall with all these buildings. It's hard to build a building somewhere else and bring it here. Now, we're doing some of that, but even then, you still have to set the foundations. You still have to secure the home or the building to the foundations. You still have to connect utilities and waste. And all of that still requires somebody be on the ground right there where it's happening. So we can't ever completely outsource it all. The future is the biggest reason. And the second reason is because it's the right thing to do.
I love it when I hear old guys. Honestly, these are some people in their 20s and 30s saying, these young kids, they don't want to work nowadays. And it blows my mind. And I hope that I don't know, maybe somewhere in some universe this becomes a soundbite and somebody brings it up in 15 years. Gen Alpha is going to be awesome for the workforce. In Gen Alpha, just to be clear, the oldest ones are about 14 right now. That's who we focus on in Construct My Future. They are just so driven by kinesthetic activities. They have been sheltered through a screen for most of their lives. So when you can put a literally a blowtorch in their hand and let them melt metal, it is like inspiring. And it is just so cool to see through the camp activities, which our purpose is not to say, hey, you have to go to trades. We just want to educate and inspire. Hey, here's the opportunities. But mark my words, Gen Alpha will change the face of the construction landscape, and they are awesome. And Marla, I think you probably have a few favorite. I mean, what are some of the activities that we thought, I don't think the kids are going to like this, and they just went nutso over?
Welding's definitely, well, we didn't think they wouldn't like it, but we were a little concerned about bringing welding in.
We had our helicopter parent hats on, I think.
We had a couple of helicopter parents, and the kids loved it. And I've been reading the parent evaluations, and this year, again, loved welding.
Welding is like the top one, isn't it? It was last year, right?
Did you just have like 2 pieces of metal that
They had a preformed piece, and then they just did a weld on the join. So it very simple, but gave them an opportunity to gear up, to learn the safety, to feel what it felt like to do a weld. I got to do it last year, which was super cool. I'd never welded before. But I also understand now why a lot of artists get into welding, that work with thick sculpture or making furniture or making other things. There's so many uses for welding. And we've even had a number of the campers' families say that mom or dad does some of these things around their homes or in their business, and now they know that camper B or A, their camper is now much more comfortable to try something with a parent or a friend because they've been exposed to it somewhere else, and they've gotten that confidence that they can do it. That was something, as I was reading through the evaluations, I so thrilled to hear this kind of confidence factor. And that's important. At least I think these kids are going to go on to high school with a different view of themselves because they've done something that they never really thought about.
Yeah, it's powerful when you realize that a tool in your hand can accomplish so many things. And it is one of those things when, especially for like a middle schooler, they've probably just seen the contractor that comes over to their house and fixes something. Maybe they haven't been introduced to dad or mom fixing things around the house, and now they're like, oh yeah, I can put a hammer, I can wield this tool, and I could probably figure this out. Especially with YouTube and different things, there's a lot of DIY out there. What activities are you looking for in the future in terms of growing the program, or maybe kids might have interest in something? Do you have any eyes to future activities?
Every year we do field trips, and that's been a way for us to get them exposed to some other aspects of the business or to see it in a bigger scale. So that's one place that it's fairly easy for us to add and subtract things in. So that's one I want to look at. And we want to keep on the basics and the licensed trades, because those are really kind of the backbone. And once you have those, then you've got some electives you can play in there. And we've had a couple of electives that have actually done really well. We brought in paving this year with asphalt and the Oklahoma Asphalt Paving Association. And in my estimation, they knocked it out of the ballpark. They had...
I didn't know how they were going to make that activity exciting, but they did. It was cool.
And when they had an outside portion where they were laying, it looked like they were laying asphalt, but it was just the dry component. They didn't have it mixed with the oil piece, so they could scrape it up. But then they brought that big roller over, and I never realized how much one of those vibrates and rumbles.
Yeah, it shakes the earth.
It does. You could feel it all the way in the building, and they were outside. So, and then they had some big equipment for the kids to see up close and climb in. And, they're at that age where they're just barely not kids anymore, but it's not entirely cool to do that stuff. But in this environment, it was. So they went to town on that. And the big equipment day is the same thing. So just giving them that opportunity to see it and touch it and operate it in even a little way just gives them that confidence. So what do we want to add next year? I'm going to have to think about that one, because I'm actually pretty happy with this year's curriculum. We did a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, and I think we'll see folks surface. I think there's some certain things. You mentioned solar before. A lot of folks, starting to approach us about solar. Also, this concept of, we almost did it this year where we were going to, through the lunch activities, slowly take them through the stages of building a shed. Something from start to finish. And when you got 96 kids doing it, you could build probably 5 sheds. I mean, after the first day, you kind of get stuck. It's like, oh yeah, these kids are fearless, man. They are going to do anything and everything we can put in front of them. But no, it's interesting how we've never had a display for foundation repair, because it's hydraulics and there's certain things about it, but we still have yet to hit on a lot of residential electric,
Yeah, that one we'd probably want to add, right? Wiring.
which our friends at the electrical cooperatives to a crazy little display where they cook hot dogs with 10,000 volts. I mean,
Does someone eat it?
you don't want those hot dogs. Those hot dogs have been sitting out in the sun all day. And you know what? Daniel, our good friend at the electrical cooperatives, he's like, they can eat it, but I don't think they're going to like it.
Maybe, maybe not. But there's definitely some places we can do more. And we've already had 3 companies contact us. We want in next year. So, yeah. So that excitement, keep everybody involved. We had about 35 different companies and organizations involved as either activity providers or sponsors.
From all walks of life, from all schools, different businesses. And then, Marla, I know you know this, like, take our 5 listeners through the next step. Like, where does Construct My Future go from here? Because, man, we've got an awesome idea of where we could take it, but we want to make sure that, that enthusiasm, obviously, we're finding stakeholders that are all about what we're all about.
We are hoping to franchise, and I say that with air quotes, this out where we can partner with people in other parts of the state and other parts of the country to put on their own camps. And we've already had, I'm not going to say massive interest, but some significant interest in doing this. Although I think our friend in Pakistan is going to be the one to watch the most closely.
Oh, wow, that's great.
But she really wants to do a camp over in Lahore, Pakistan. So that's a whole nother story. You just have to trust me that we have a new friend from Pakistan. She was here, she was at camp, and now she wants to take it back to Pakistan. But that shows, how global this is. We all build structures, and we all need people that know how to build those structures and the supporting infrastructure that goes around it and all the things that make our life possible. I mean, we're not out in the prairie anymore where we just do it all ourselves. It takes a big team to make all these things happen.
And you've had people reach out to you from all sorts of places here in the U.S., though. I'm sorry I'm not involved with all of that, but, I mean, you've had folks reach out from, Utah?
A couple others, and I can't even think where they all are, but I'm hoping that we will get an opportunity to share this at the Builders Show, because I think the time is right for us to start figuring out how to grow to the next level, have a more national component that supports other people having camps, and then we continue to have one here. But it's also our little test tube that we get to try things and see what works and how to, I don't want to tell anybody else something to do if we haven't tried it already. So that's a good place for us. And I had one parent say, we asked them, what could we do to make the camp better? And she said, make it 2 weeks.
For the kids, not the parents, right?
It's like, I don't know how I can make it 2 weeks.
Yeah, like 1 week is pretty solid. Yeah, we're good with this. I have to say that, I love the camp from the idea that, like, kids, youth, we need a sense of wonder. And you got to leave the bedroom. You got to leave the video games for a second, leave the virtual reality and enter into the reality and see what's possible. And the whole idea of, like, oh, this is uncool to choose the trades, or it's uncool to choose construction. It's like, no, this is really cool. Let me show you how. And I'll show you like 15 different ways during this camp. So kudos for that. And I think every contractor out there probably has a way that they want to be able to help. And I'm sure that there are contractors that are thinking like, hey, we don't have a camp like this in my city or in my state. Maybe I'm the one to create this or to pioneer it. But if I'm not, do you have any like words of advice maybe for them of, hey, this is a small way or a small gesture in your community that like you can bring the trades or bring construction to full focus?
Well, and if they're not ready for a camp, starting on a smaller scale, going out and talking to schools, or bringing a few students in to job shadow, just small gestures like that help to start to bridge that gap. And we see all kinds of programs. I'm still involved with the national level of the Home Builders Association. And we're starting to capture more of these in an idea database and see what other places are doing. And actually, the National Association of Home Builders has partnered with the Boys and Girls Club to start sharing more in those Boys and Girls Club meetings how they go about their work and how to get these kids doing some of the activities that we do during camp, but on a smaller basis. They're doing it for an hour a week or something along those lines. So yeah, even small bites can give these kids an opportunity to see something that they can't. I think one of the most telling things I heard, it was the first or second year we did Build My Future, and we were interviewing 2 young ladies And one of them says, I had no idea there were so many things in the building industry. I thought you just hammered some nails. But I thought that's, I think, what a lot of people think. You know, they think of carpentry, they think of, you know, woodwork and hammers. And there's so many different pieces to it that, you know, there's pieces you can go to a trade school. There's pieces that you can go to an apprenticeship. There's pieces you can go to college. There's pieces you can combine all that. And there's so many different job pathways that go through that. And they're all good and they're all needed. So just getting that one little glimmer in a young person's eye can literally be the start to them thinking something different.
Well, and I think we have to get rid of the misconception that they only want to be on their phone and they don't want to do any of this. That you find out in the first 15 minutes, that's not the case with these kids, and that's really inspiring. I will tell you a funny story, Dylan, and we have a lot of great kids, but, you know, sometimes they get emotional and they have outbursts, and we had one child this year that took off, you know, after a little bit of a spat with another kid, and we ended up sitting him down saying, hey, listen, we're not going to keep you here if you don't want to be here. And he said, yeah, I want to go home. Called the parents, and the mom said, I'll be there in 20 minutes with a belt. And sure as hell, she showed up with the belt. She didn't beat the kid. It's okay.
We're pretty sure she didn't use it.
Was the belt in hand? Did you see the belt?
And the funny thing is it was a man's belt. And I'm thinking, she probably stole that belt from her husband on the job site somewhere. He could have been working in a UPS store for all I know. And he's like, I'm going to the camp. I need your belt. And took his belt, went in there and talked to her son. He was the best behaved and most engaged kid the rest of the camp. But such a funny story.
Amazing, the power of a belt.
And, oh, she deserves the Parent of the Year award, because I caught her on the way out. And I said, listen, I know how this feels, but I just want to let you know I'm in the principal's office every other week. And she looked at me and was like, so I'm not the only one? And I'm like, no, ma'am. But, you know, he was a good kid. He just got worn out and overstimulated with all this stuff going on, and somebody said something snide, and he just had a little spat was all, but that was such a good laugh. And Marla, you know, we always ask this question to our guests, and we like to screw things up here. I love it. I'm the patron saint of falling on my face. So what's something that you can brag about that you screwed up that, you know, somebody could hopefully relate to?
You want the most recent one?
Sure. Yeah. Just today, you mean?
Oh, it was Wednesday. I'm in charge of getting all the information out for the 4 field trips that the kids are all going on, right? Will and I have been back and forth 3 or 4 times about the correct address for one of the field trips because they had moved recently. Well, I send the correct address to all the bus drivers. Somehow, the one I copy has the incorrect address on it. We have one group that goes to the wrong place. They were going to the right place, then they went to the wrong place. And in the middle of all that, they missed their whole session. So they show up where we were. So we have to cram 2 groups together.
And that was what, 40, 45 maybe students in one location?
Yeah, it was by the time we got them there. But at least it was at the field trip location that was the most accommodating and very understanding. And the kids were great. They're like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. I'm like, I know, thank you. And our crew lead was great because I couldn't get my math to work. So that was my most recent one, but they all got to all 4 of their places. They all had a good time, although they were hot and sweaty. Yeah, it was a hot day.
But the kids didn't know anything that went wrong.
Well, the ones that were there did.
At the end of the day, it's probably their first time for most of them, I assume. So
yeah, we had about 15 that came back from last year.
They're along for the ride. Yeah. So roll with the punches.
Yeah, we have a lot of students that are aging out, but yeah, it's exhausting, fulfilling. Boy, I'm glad we do it every year and continuing to grow it. So Marla, you are everywhere. You have 7 different emails. I know you've got a few different social media accounts. How do people get a hold of you either for Green Home Coach or the camp to learn more?
Green Home Coach is easy. Everything on social media is at Green Home Coach. Website is greenhomecoach.com. So that one's easy. If you want to find me, I'm Marla at greenhomecoach.com. So that one's pretty easy. If you want on the Construct My Future side, same thing. Second verse, Construct My Future. Although our website is constructmyfutureok.org. And then my address, just to make it even more challenging, is Marla at constructmyfuturecamp.org. Yeah. Well, we were thinking ahead, you know, when we become national, we didn't want to be okay. So And we are on all the social media as well as Construct My Future. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So we are posting from camp. So go check it out. There's a great website video on our website from the camp where we squeeze 5 days of wonderful camp activity into 4 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 44 seconds. And that's just and Mike Petty does a great job of those videos. Well, Marla, I know you're exhausted. I hope you enjoyed your wine today.
I did.
And now we get a relaxation week, hopefully, to go back and run our businesses. It's like that whole week. Well, Dillon, during the camp, it's like I can't even answer the phone. But super proud of you and your accomplishments, but also that you've been able to help us get this camp off the ground. And to all of you out there, yes, please. I know we make that joke of like, subscribe, and hit that smash bell. What's it called, Dillon?
Just do all the buttons. Hit them all. Every button that we have, just push it. Stops the button.
But yes, please do look up Construct My Future on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Our team there does a really good job, and it kind of gives you a glimpse into what we're doing, and it's just inspiring. So, Marla, thank you for coming. Dillon, last episode that you are here in the studio, you will be at your new home in Wichita next week.
That's right. Yeah, I'm moving. So I'm excited about the move. And
cheers to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, the backdrop may be different, but the beer will still be cold.
Yeah, except mine will not, because you're taking the beer fridge with you. And that is a sore spot, sir. So to our listeners out there, I'm looking for a new co-host, because Dillon's taking the beer fridge with him to his new home in Wichita, Kansas, leaving me all alone here in the Unison offices in Oklahoma City. So I'll get my first applicant. It'll be like, do you have a beer fridge? Yes, you're hired.
Oh, you don't speak English. Oh, okay.
That's okay. You got the beer fridge? Just write it down. Beer fridge, Google Translate. Cool. You're on. Anyway, appreciate all you guys out there. Thank you, Marla, again, and we will see you guys next week.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.